Hello, I'm Charlotte and this is Books and Bargains. As you can possibly tell from the title of this video, today I'm coming to you with my June wrap-up. Now, for the stats nerds among you, in June I read 12 books. This was made up of 7 physical books, 4 audiobooks and 1 ebook, with an average rating of 4.3 stars, which is excellent. I am getting so much better at picking books that I know that I'm going to love, and I'm getting better at DNF in anything that's going to be less than a 3-star. So I'm hoping to consistently keep that number up there. The audience age of the fiction that I read was 3 middle grade books, 4 YA and 4 adult, which is really weird, and it shows what sticks out in your mind, because I feel like I've read a lot of middle grade this month, but clearly not. An extra stat for you this month, which I don't even know what I'm doing with this stat other than presenting it to you and having a little think about it myself. As of today, June the 30th, my physical TBR stands at 825 books. We're not having a discussion about that. It is what it is, and I am happy with it. My NetGalley percentage currently stands at 57%, with 83 books on my TBR there. And I'm just going to keep an eye on these. Like I say, I'm not judging myself. I'm pretty happy with the way that I buy books, and so it is what it is. I did just want to point out, before we go into my June wrap-up, I didn't do a May wrap-up, and while I'm not going to go through all the books that I read in May, there are 4 here that I think I would be doing these books a massive disservice if I didn't speak to you about them. So the first one of these, everybody has been telling me for so long to read this book, and I don't know why I didn't, and that's Toshikazu Kawaguchi's Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And apart from the first story in this, so basically what I knew from this book before going into it is all I'm going to tell you, and that is that this is a cafe in Japan, I believe, and in this cafe people can travel to the past, but there are a lot of rules, like who they can see and what they can do. And so yes, that is that. I gave it a 4-star because the first story in it didn't love, but if that had been taken out, I think it would have been a 5-star. Another 4-star book that I read this month, and this is part of a trilogy, but I believe that they can all be read as standalones, and that is Lucy Povrie's Paper and Heart Society, Read with Pride. And in this story we follow Olivia, and her school have made this absurd rule that to take out queer fiction, or non-fiction I suppose, just queer books from their library, the parents have to sign a permission slip, and our main characters go on an activism drive to get that overturned, and it's just a lovely book. So I gave that one a 4-star. And then 2 absolute 5-stars. The first of these being The Serial Killer's Wife. This is a debut novel from Alice Hunter, and it was just perfect for me. I've gone a little bit off thrillers this year. I've read some really crap ones, and then I've also just not been in the mood for thrillers, but I was sent this by the publishers and read it and could not put it down. And I think from reading it, because I think there's really good like health representation in here, and I'm sure, yeah, so Alice has been a nurse and has worked in like institutions, and it really came through in this. There was none of the thing that I hate in thrillers where the trope is, oh, you know, crazy woman. And so yeah, I gave that a 5-star. That was brilliant, and if you're a thriller lover, I would recommend picking that up. And then the last book is about to knock full disclosure off its perch as #1 book for this year, and that is Ray Stoeve's Between Perfect and Real. Now, I've told you before that any book that has a theatre representation ignites my little theatre nerd heart, and even though this was based on Romeo and Juliet, and I'm not really a big Shakespeare person, I just couldn't get over how much I loved this book. Again, absolutely devoured it. I was sent this via NetGalley, and then the publishers were kind enough to reach out to me and send me a finished copy. I don't know what I want to tell you about this. It says, can Dean go for everything he needs without losing all he has? And I think it says Dean Foster knows he's a trans guy. He's watched enough YouTube videos and done enough questioning to be sure. But everyone at his high school thinks he's a lesbian, including his girlfriend Zoe and his theatre director, who has just cast him as a non-traditional Romeo. And I thought this was fantastic. There is so much different... Again, it's one of these stories where our main character deals with a lot of stuff, and I think in a lot of books, for example, our main character's parents aren't necessarily, how do I put it, the parents make some really crappy mistakes and the way that they address things, and I think in a lot of books we're kind of given it from the parents' view of like, well, you've got to understand. And in this one, because we're very much in Dean's point of view, it challenges some of the things that even I think that I would have said before reading this book. Like I say, don't want to give any spoilers, but get this book ordered. So that is enough rambling from me at this beginning. Let's go into the vlog style wrap up. So it is the 1st of June, and I have sort of decided to go back to the kind of vlog style wrap ups. I haven't filmed my May wrap up yet, and I'm looking at the stack of books, and I know that a lot of them I had some thoughts about and now I can't remember. So I've just finished Both of You by Adele Parks. This was part of a Tandem Collective read along, and I'm gonna try not to give spoilers, but some of these things that I say may spoil the enjoyment a bit, so if you don't want that, then just skip to when I put this book down. I've given this a 4-star. I think it sits somewhere more of a 3.5 for me. There was a twist about a third of the way through that I was not expecting, but a lot of the girls in the DM group were like, yep, saw that come in, it was obvious. Not for me. I am very much, if there's an unreliable narrator, I don't question it. Like, if you tell me something, I'm gonna believe it. So yeah, that makes thrillers quite interesting reading for me. However, the other twist at the end I had worked out way before, and there were just a few things with the ending that I didn't feel like wrapped up or anything. So yeah, 3.5 stars. I won't be holding on to this one because I don't keep hardbacks. I'll be passing this on to Loros. So if you're in Leicester area and you want to pick this up, check out Loros at Queen's Road and it might still be there. So it is the 3rd of June today, and I've just finished reading Clap When You Land, and you might be able to tell I've had a little sob. I read this via my library on BorrowBox, so I listened to the audiobook, and Elizabeth Acevado really knows how to write. This is my second one that I've read, and I'm not sure about whether I get novels in verse when I read them physically, but listening to them and the emotion that the two narrators put in between Yahaira and Camino just blew me away completely. So I think I'm going to listen to The Poet X as an audiobook as well. I'm sure that you will have heard about this one by now. Everyone on BookTube seems to have read it already. However, this is based on a true story of a plane that went down between New York and the Dominican Republic. And it is telling the story of two sisters that don't know the other exists until their dad dies on the plane. So their dad spends most of the time with Yahaira in New York, and then when he's in New York, they think that he's working away and vice versa. And this this story just had all the kind of feelings around grief and what it means to be a family and all of this. And the thing that I really loved about it more than anything is that Elizabeth Acevado let the characters feel what they were feeling. So even if their feelings were selfish or unjustified or anything like that, they were allowed to feel that feeling. And this book is definitely a 5-star and going up in my top 10 of 2021. So it is the 4th of June and I have just finished You Must Be Layla by Yasmin Abdel-Magied, and I'm going to give this book a 3-star, but that is coming with some caveats. So Layla herself is a 5-star character. She is brilliant. She's just a bold, bright girl, and I really love the Muslim representation. Sorry, I've just got this bit of hair that's just dead straight against the rest of my curls. Anyway, that's not what you're here for. She is interested in electronics and robotics, and it's good to see I don't know whether this is middle grade or YA. It's kind of on the cusp. She's in year 8, so like 12, I think, 11, 12. So yeah, she's a 5-star character and I did enjoy this book. However, the pacing of this book was totally off. There'd be like long bits of nothing and then all these things would happen at once. Also, I don't know if this is a spoiler. I don't think it is, because I don't think sexuality should ever be a plot point, therefore it can't be a spoiler, if that makes sense. But there's a coming out scene in this that was just, it was almost like we got near the end of the book and the author went, oh crap, I haven't put any queer rep in this, so I need to do it. And it just, yeah, it just didn't sit right with me. However, yeah, that's why it's got a 3, because it's got this 5-star character and this amazing character, but then just the story around it. I think the author tried to do too much in this one book. That said, it had to be a 3-star because I still enjoyed it, and I will definitely pick up the sequel to find out what Layla gets up to next. It's a bit like the way that I feel with Sweet Pea. I know these books are totally different, that I'm so invested in the character that I want to know what more goes on. So it is the 6th of June and I have just DNF'd this book at 15 pages in. Now, I don't normally DNF a book so quickly, but this just, I'm really upset that I've DNF'd it in a way, because it was making me laugh so much. But at 15 pages in, we've already had 2 like really fat phobic sentences that have just made me go, ugh. That's the only way I can put it. I can't find the first sentence, but where is it? Where was the one that I just DNF'd on? It was page 15, I'm sure it was. Yeah, so it just said they were talking about what she was going to wear for this date, and it said, what if he thought I was fat? And it's like, being fat is not the worst thing that you can be. Like, I would be more worried on a date, what if the guy thinks that I'm boring? What if the guy thinks that I'm a Tory? Somebody thinking you're fat, being fat is not the worst thing someone can be. And I'll almost forgive kind of chick lit books that are written years ago, but to be written in 2021 and have that kind of bullshit, I am just not here for it. So that is being DNF'd. It is now the 10th of June and I currently have 5 books on the go. No, 6 books on the go. So they're all kind of coming along at a steady pace. Don't know if you can tell, but I have been crying again. And that's because of this book. This is possibly the easiest 5-star I have ever given a book. This is Manjeet Mann's The Crossing, and it follows our two main characters. I literally have just finished and I'm like, what are the characters' names? So you have Natalie, who has lost her mum and is feeling a bit lost in the world when she decides to start retraining to swim, as she wants to swim the channel, as that was one of her mum's life goals. And then we follow Sammy, who is fleeing his home of Eritrea because it's not safe. And there's just this, the way that this is written, it's a book in verse, and you'll like get to the end of a Sammy sentence and the last word will be the start of Nat's sentence. And while I was reading this, I could just picture it like on a stage where they're both just speaking, and it's like the light going on and off each one, and it's just yeah. This is a very heavy book. There is pretty much trigger warnings for everything in this, and I'm so glad that I've read it, but I'm also glad that I didn't just sit and read it all in one go. It would have been too much for me, I think. So I've been reading this alongside some softer reads, but this is definitely up there. I think this may be my top book of the year, maybe joint top, but yeah, I feel like I can't speak about this one. It's given me a lot to think about. Good morning. It is the 13th of June, I think now, and I've just finished Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jagredar. I was gonna say it's taken me a while to read this one, but that's because I didn't want it to end. I just loved this book so much. In this, we follow Hani and Ishu, and they are... oh, well, actually, I was going to say they are both bisexual, but I don't think we actually know that. Hani is definitely bisexual, and she tells her friends that she's bisexual, and they don't believe her. So she ends up coming up with a plan with Ishu to fake date, and they start to have feelings for each other along the way. This book was so good. I'm kind of over straight YA now, because that's all I read as a teenager, but now my little bisexual heart loves any kind of queer or different culture, because all I ever read was white straight YA. So this book was really great at showing the kind of microaggressions that these girls face, and just there's scenes that talk about how when I think Hani was already at the school, and when Ishu joined, they were put together as buddies because the school racistly assumed that they'd have loads in common because they were both brown. I think that's what it says in it, and it's just, they're just so different characters. And I find sometimes in books that are multiple perspectives that the perspectives are far too similar, but Hani and Ishu both had their own voice and their own personality, and yeah, it's just wonderful. Insta by author for me, and so obviously I gave that 5 stars. Good morning. It is the 18th of June, and in the past 24 hours I have finished 2 books, so I thought I'd share them with you. If you can see, I'm a little bit teary, and that is because I have just finished listening to The Secret Midwife, and I'm not even sure how to put into words how this book, I feel like it's a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be. And not just because of the fact that obviously it says on the front life, death and the truth about birth, but as well as that, it's also a kind of study into how the NHS treats its staff. And those of you that know, I left the NHS at the end of last year, and this was just spot on. In the epilogue, she talks about how, you know, she doesn't want a cheerleader every time she delivers a baby safely. That's her job. But it would be nice now and again to hear a well done, or to hear that a manager actually cares about your well-being, because the NHS doesn't care about its staff, and the government doesn't care about NHS staff. And yeah, and so if you can handle the kind of darkness of this book, I think it's a fantastic read. I listened to it on audiobook via BorrowBox at my library, and yeah, really, really one of the best medical memoirs I have read. I would say this one and When Breath Becomes Air are up there as my top medical memoirs. And then on the complete opposite side of the scale, because I've been going through some stuff and my brain just needed a bit of fluff, I read Jenny Colgan's The Little Shop of Happy Ever After. This features Nina, who her library is closing down, and she decides to buy a van, fill it with books, and become a travelling bookshop. And what more can I say? That sounds like the perfect job for me. This book, I was giving it about a 5-star most of the way through, but there were a few little bits that made me feel really uncomfortable. And I thought the pacing was a bit off. There were a few little bits that just suddenly happened and I was like, oh, okay. But generally, I love a Jenny Colgan. Always perfect for when I'm having a bad brain day. And yeah, so I gave that a 4-star in the end. Good afternoon. It is Sunday the 20th of June, and I've just finished reading The Shelf by Helly Acton. I say just finished. I finished it first thing this morning, and it's taken me about 48 hours to read this book. I could not put it down. So I don't know if you've heard of The Shelf. I am really late to the party on this one, but quite simply put, it is a Big Brother style show for girls who have been left on the shelf. And the whole premise of it, there's no other way to describe him, an arsehole of a presenter, and he's always calling them girls, you know, oh, what tasks have we got for the girls today? And we meet these very different characters who all really get to know themselves during this process. And it was just, I think, on the surface, it was a really easy read. But if you just scratch below the surface a little bit, there was lots of commentary about how we perceive women in society. The one thing that did make me feel a little bit uncomfortable were the mention of like having a fat day and things. However, to contradict that, there was also a lot of kind of anti-fat shaming language. So yeah, I'm not totally sure how I feel on that one. This would be a 4.5 star, but I don't do half stars, so I'm gonna give it a 5-star, and I'm hoping to get my hands on Helly Acton's new book soon. So once again, you join me in my pyjamas. It is 8:30 at night, and I wish I could say that I was about to get into bed, but I'm not, because I start my night shift at 10 o'clock tonight. However, it is the 21st of June, and I've just finished The Paper and Heart Society, Bookishly Ever After. Now, this is the third and final book in the Paper and Heart Society trilogy. And if you've watched my mid-year freakout tag, you will know that I was disappointed by this one. Firstly though, I want to say, I got a chocolate on my mouth. No, that's not what I wanted to say. I was talking in that book about how I don't like trilogies that don't give me an ending, and the ending to this was perfect. This was a 5-star ending, but the book itself really let me down. Ed as a character, I loved in the first 2 books, and somebody else has said this on Goodreads, and I thought that Ed had come out as gay in one of the other books, and then there was no mention of this, and then he had a crush on a girl. And I really didn't like how his crush was handled. I know that Ed was going through some stuff, but like I said in that last video, I really felt in this, if he'd have been about 12 years old, I'd have gone, okay, it's just, you know, but some of the choices that he made and the things that he did, I understood the way his friends handled it, but I really didn't like, I'm trying to do this without giving spoilers, but Ed did something that really affected one of the other characters in here, and I mean really affected this character, and he basically badgered her into forgiving him, and I didn't like that he didn't respect her boundaries. And yeah, so I'm giving this a 3-star overall. There were 2-star moments in this. Most of the book was average, and then I don't know what the bloody hell that was. There were 2-star moments, a 5-star ending, and most of the book was a 3-star. So like I say, quite disappointed in that one. I don't think I'd recommend reading it. I'd recommend reading the other 2 books in this series and then just stopping there and pretending that it's a duology. Good evening. Excuse the mess down here. It is the 23rd of June. I've just DNF'd Animal by Lisa Taddeo. I'm a little bit disappointed with Tandem Collective, who run the tours for this, because we were told a content warning of miscarriage, and I haven't even got to that yet, and yet there has been sexual assault and things like that, which I think should have been more included in the trigger warnings. I always think that content warnings are important, but I personally have never needed them before. But without going into too much detail, something has been brought to my attention in my life, and yeah, I'm feeling a bit fragile with certain things at the moment. What I did read of this book, it is all over the place and it didn't make a lot of sense to me, so I'm going to DNF that because it's putting me in a reading slump because I just don't want to be reading it. So sorry Tandem, but this one was a big fail. It is the 25th of June and I have just DNF'd All the Fun of the Fair at about 50% in. This book, I haven't read it, so it was marketed to me as an adult book, but it's told from the point of view of a 12-year-old girl, and it's very basic in her way of the world. So that just didn't work for me. If you like that kind of thing, you might like this. I don't know whether I just didn't get the humour, but everybody's saying about all the Goodreads reviews that I've read, people have said how nostalgic it is and how funny and how it's hilarious. I didn't get any of that. I was pretty bored, and so I'm putting that one down. So it is the 27th of June and I am aware that my fringe definitely needs a cut now. However, I've just finished reading Rainbow Grey by Laura Ellen Anderson, and I gave this a 5-star straight off. I started reading it yesterday and I've just absolutely devoured it. In this magical middle grade, our main character Ray finds out about her ancestors basically, and just goes on a really marvellous adventure. And as soon as I see that the second book is ready to pre-order, I will be pre-ordering it. It has these beautiful sprayed edges too, which is what drew me to it in the first place. And the wonderful Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin is a character in this book, so what's not to love? It is the 30th of June and I'm just filming this, and then I am going to go and put this video together. In the last couple of days I finished 2 books. Both of these I did my kind of reading with subtitles, in that I listened to these on audiobook, but I do have the physical copy. So the first one is Starfell, Willow, Moss and the Lost Day. I reread this via audio because I want to get onto the second book, and I had to show you these sprayed edges, didn't I? When I first read this book, I gave it a 4-star because it took me a long time to get into it. However, this time through, I have bumped it up to a 5-star because I don't know whether it's just because I've been on such a middle grade click recently, whether it's because knowing the character as I did, I spotted things in the beginning that I didn't last time. And yeah, so this book, I just think it has so many brilliant lines in it that are like teaching kids about tolerance and differences, and all so naturally done. The main plot of this one is that young character Willow Moss is a bit disappointed that of all the magic she could have been given, her magic is for finding lost things, and her sisters tease her about it and call her fetch. And it's just about Willow learning about her power, and although it might not be the big shiny magic that she wants it to be, it's about her learning her worth. And it's just such a brilliant book. It's the first thing that I've read by Dominique Valente, and it certainly won't be the last. I'm actually hoping in July to read the second book in this series. And the other book that I finished is The Girl Who Reads on the Metro by Christine Feret-Fleury. Hope I've pronounced that right. This book I've given a 3-star to, and it's one of those. There were some real 5-star moments in this, describing like the smell of books, and it's got all that kind of bookish stuff that anybody that loves books will love. And I like the way that the story comes about. However, I don't know if it was just lost in translation, but the plot didn't really make any sense to me. So yeah, that one is going to be leaving my collection and going on to a new home. I hope you've enjoyed this vlog style wrap up. If you have, please let me know down below, because I'm not sure right now which way to go with these, whether to stick with the vlog style format or go back to just a wrap up at the end of the month. So yeah, let me know below, and until next time, look after yourselves. Bye.